is First Strike. I'm your host, Mikey Money. I'm joined with MMA Jeff and Subhuman Gaucho. The sports money apex predators of the Octagon are here to do it again. We're going to talk UFC Abu Dhabi. And it should be a fun card. Boys, UFC pay-per-view event last week. We were talking about it backstage. Jeff, thoughts here, man? Is this another card? What's going on with these prelims? They end up being better than the main events. What's your thoughts on that?
I was laughing. I had a buddy text me. He's like, I paid for the pay-per-view and it sucked. And I was like, dude, did you watch the prelims? I was like, there was like 7 finishes in a row. It was ridiculous. And it was fantastic. I thought it was great. Yeah, I mean, it was a little bit slower, obviously, for the main card, but regardless, it was great fights all around.
Subhuman Gaucho, big winner last week with Judice, but you sandbagging SOB. It sounds like you had a big payday on that fight out there. How'd UFC pay-per-view card turn out for you?
Yeah, man, that was one of my best of the year. I had a ton of fun. The main card was like a bit of a letdown for a pay-per-view in some regards, but really good from a betting perspective. And short and long term, I feel like we've got a ton to look forward to, man. The UFC dropping some big fights here in the early fall and whatnot that I'm very much looking forward to here in a couple of months. So yeah, I can't wait.
Some of these pay-per-view cards definitely lining up. Dana dropping UFC 320 news the other day. Looks like some bangers. And hey, you know what? Even our guy Andrew Babakitis was talking about it. Lots of early action coming in. A lot of excitement for this Abu Dhabi card and some great matchups here. We've heard some things already about how the fellas out there in Abu Dhabi wanted the Ribas Ricci fight. There's some Yaya maybe getting himself one last time before he maybe retires from this whole thing. We got Boudet. We'll talk about that fight as well. But this is a great card, I think, top to bottom. And I can't believe Shara Magomedov's back in this thing. I thought he retired out there. But we'll get to some of these fights as we get rolling come Saturday. In the meantime, UFC First Strike is here to give you guys 3 early looks to try to beat these books. We're going to try to maximize the CLV on these cards, but we're going to give you some breakdowns. You'll see the card on the right. We're going to talk about these fights. We're going to start it off with MMA Jeff. He's going to go right to the curtain jerker tonight. Last week we had Sub on the curtain jerker. Tonight we have Jeff on the curtain jerker. Jeff, the floor is yours. Talk to us about your path to victory.
Yeah, we got a pretty decent heavyweight battle here. We got Boudet versus Buchecha. This fight, this was a late add onto the card. We got Slovak versus Brazil. Ultimately, neither guy has had a full camp either way. I'm sure they're both in shape, both training on a regular, but neither one was prepared for each other, which I think makes this one a pretty decent fight. You got Boudet 6-1 in the UFC, coming off 2 decision wins. He had a tight decision win against Arlovsky last June, followed by a UNAM over the undefeated fighter who made his UFC debut. Boudet is a powerful striker. He can move pretty quickly on the feet for a big guy. He tends to start out a little bit slow. Looking back at the tape, maybe he holds it back a little bit. Doesn't want to gas out necessarily, but given his history, he's made it to a couple of decisions. So I don't think he's necessarily starting out slow to gas out. I think he's looking to feel his opponents out. You got these heavyweights. Nobody wants to go out there and get their top popped in the first round. Buchecha, on the other hand, making his UFC debut. He sits at 5-1 as a pro. 4 of those wins have come by submission. Now, he is a grappler wrestler with a lot of power. He tends to dominate when he's going for takedowns, and when he gets the fight to the ground, he again tends to look for takedowns. He's willing to wrestle it out with the Brazilian BJJ background. He doesn't mind being on top, looking for the downward pressure. He also doesn't mind fighting off his back. I have a feeling he's going to try to take this one to the mat quickly, like he generally tends to do in his last couple of fights. Although this might not be the most exciting fight on the card, doesn't mean we can't make money on it. I think the wrestling style of Buchecha and the slow start of Boudet, I think it's going to make this an interesting match. Buchecha will try to use his wrestling to look for submissions, which I don't know if Boudet. I think Boudet's experience ultimately is going to prevent Buchecha from getting a submission right off the gate. We know Buchecha is not going to come out there, stand toe-to-toe with Boudet. You know what? I'm going to roll with the heavyweight on this one. This heavyweight fight, I think, is going to go over the 1.5 round total. Give me a Boudet fight over 1.5 rounds at -120. I see this line screaming, so get on it soon. Mike's going to roll us to the next one. Mike, we got number 12 versus number 13. What do you got in store for us?
Thanks, Jeff. 2-0. We're rolling into this thing here with our third fight on the line, and we're going to go for another big price tag. I'll tell you, there was 2 fights on this card. Coin flip between the 2 of them. I'm going to take them both either way, but I decided I think the other line is going to move a little bit more in our favor. I was texting back and forth with you fellas earlier today saying I think that one's going to get a little bit more money on it, but this one I think is going to reach its ceiling here, and it's been ridiculous, radical line movement. Nikita Krylov, Bogdan Guskov, going to battle it out here. We know a couple of things about these guys. And by the way, a lot of the commonality in fighters, if you look back at this tape and you look back at who these guys have fought in the UFC, and they're all kind of circling back around the toilet bowl again down there in Abu Dhabi for this battle. I think this is an opportunity for us to take a look here. I've had a lot of success getting involved in the main card, not so much these early spots, so I wanted to focus in here. And I'm going to look at Guskov in this battle. If you want to look at a couple of different things, one, I love active fighters. And you look at you talk a little bit about some of these guys and how frequently we were talking backstage, Jeff, about how many times these guys have fought inside of the calendar year. Hey, Guskov loves to be in the gym. I love a gym rat. I love a guy that wants to go out there. He doesn't mind getting slapped in the mouth a couple of times. He's been incredibly active. It's almost 2-1 in terms of the activity against Krylov. And if you look at Krylov, it's hard not to take a look at his last fight. Brutal spot there. Got busted up. He's coming in off an injury. He's dealt with some back issues. He's been pretty vocal about that. His strength is clearly being, I think, a grappler in this case. And his path to victory, if he's going to, is going to have to be to get Guskov down to the ground. Going to be hard to do that. It's a big boy, as we can see with the height and weight measurements out there. But let's talk a little bit about the Spann fight. And yeah, they both have a common win or a common opponent victory, if you will, out there. But I think there's a difference in the way they went after it. I think Spann kind of gave up a little bit on that Krylov side of things and said, I don't want to get punched anymore. Go ahead and choke me out. On the flip side of things, Guskov put him down to the mat and then ground and pounded his ass for the KO. Not only that, but in terms of athleticism, back-to-back fight of the night spots for Guskov, he's a finisher. Johnny Walker saw the fight and said, no, thank you. I'm not interested. And I think that's advantageous here because what we know about Krylov is he's more of a karate-oriented fighter. They're always moving forward. They're always trying to go out there, and they just don't play shit for defense. And I think the problem with the guy, when you look at a guy like Guskov, is this guy can go get popped. And what he does is he wiles out. He throws big uppercuts. We saw that in his previous fights out there, and he can find the button. Not a big ground guy, but a chin guy. And I think his takeaway, if you look at that Elikana fight, which is a fight that Elikana's back on this card this week, Elikana almost got him. It just seemed like in that second round, he did gas out to some degree. And I think you can learn from that as a younger fighter out there. Not much in terms of the age advantage, but ring time. You learn from some of those spots out there. And I think the challenge Krylov's going to have is how do you recover after you get popped? Do your legs get wobbly? Do you just gas out and give up? And I think that's the spot. I like Guskov to finish this guy, and I like him to finish him inside the distance. But for fight intent and purpose right now, I think the most value, especially the pinnacle of where this number sits by game night, this is going to come down. We're going to take ourselves some Guskov plus 175. Night to Krylov, and we'll hand it over to Subhuman Gaucho to talk to us about a Nurmagomedov battle. And one Thug Nasty, Sub. Let's hear your path to victory.
Good stuff, fellas. Yeah, that Guskov line, Mike, is staring me in the face, by the way. I've gotten pretty close to clicking that. I might just join you. We'll see how watch Krylov is come Saturday, I suppose. But until then, we've got Thug Nasty Bryce Mitchell taking on Saeed Nurmagomedov. Now, this Nurmagomedov, a little bit different than a lot of people from this region, primarily a kickboxer, striking specialist. And Bryce Mitchell, first time at bantamweight. So that's kind of it's an interesting development, to be sure. I tend to think it's good for Bryce. I'm not going to hide the ball on this one too much. I like Bryce in this spot quite a lot. Saeed's a very dangerous fighter. He's got some powerful weapons on the feet, but a pretty low volume guy that likes to kind of fight at distance in a rather low volume kickboxing match, which is something that Bryce Mitchell is certainly not going to give him. Bryce Mitchell, a little bit back and forth lately. Just 2-3 in his last 5. But those are only 3 professional losses, and they all come inside the distance, but they also come to some very high-level competition. The first one coming to Aaliyah Topuria, obviously one of the pound-for-pound greats right now. Josh Emmett, arguably the biggest hitter ever in the featherweight division in the UFC. And John Silva, a guy who's taken on Diego Lopes, and, he wins that. He might be awarded a title shot. So the losses have all aged very, very well. And, for me, a lot of it just comes down to, the obvious advantage that Bryce is going to have, which is in the wrestling and grappling. Saeed, he's had a pretty good UFC run at 7-3, but his losses tend to come when he's getting taken down 2 or more times and when he's getting controlled for, more than a couple minutes, more than a few minutes. I think that's exactly what's going to happen here. Saeed, his takedown defense, when you watch on tape, I think there's a lot of positives, actually. It's despite his being taken down a lot, I think his technique as far as, stuff in the head, digging underhooks, all pretty good. Part of the trouble with him, it comes down to his striking style. This guy loves to throw spinning crap. And when you throw spinning stuff a lot, you tend to get taken down. People can just grab you around the waist, grab you, get in on your legs, etc. In this case, I think Mitchell's probably one of the best wrestlers that Saeed's ever fought before. And unlike some of the other people that were taking him down, Bryce Mitchell has some next level good control. So I think when Bryce Mitchell takes this fight to the ground, I think that's the end of the round. And on the feet, much as I think you have to give a bit of an edge to Saeed here. I think Bryce Mitchell can actually win a lot of minutes, even in some of those losses that I just mentioned. Bryce has some success, even against very good strikers. And, while Saeed is, yes, a good striker, I don't think he's a great striker. And I think Mitchell will actually win minutes on the feet, on the way to getting takedowns. And, more than likely, I see this as being a Bryce Mitchell wet blanket unanimous decision. The one worry I think, and, I've heard this narrative a little bit, apart from the outside chance that maybe Saeed could land one of his spinning attacks. We did just see Bryce Mitchell get, ninja choked by John Silva. And Saeed, he's very good at that technique. He's landed it multiple times, or I should say he's finished fights with it multiple times in his UFC career. But, I think that's quite a long shot against Bryce Mitchell. John Silva is just a completely different animal. John Silva was stuffing takedowns. He was landing big shots against Bryce on the feet. And, I think he had Bryce flustered, hurt, getting tired. I don't see this fight going that way. If anything, Saeed has looked very poor insofar as his cardio is concerned in a number of fights. If anybody's going to pace the other guy in this matchup, I think it's going to be Bryce. So, watch the weigh-ins on Friday to be sure, just to see how Bryce fills out at 35 here. Hopefully he's not looking too bad on the scales, but in the end, I think this move is going to be good for him. He's already 5'10". Now he's going to have a bit of a physicality advantage. He's going to be the bigger, taller, younger guy with a better gas tank and just a lot of minute winning ability against a guy in Saeed that I think is very finishing dependent. So I've taken multiple units on this, been adding throughout the week. Still some minus 125s available, but a lot of these lines getting down to, your minus 135, minus 140 range. Probably, I think, a bit of value there. I capped this upwards of 60% for Bryce Mitchell. So, give me the American to go out to the desert and do his thing for the good guys. All that said, best of luck to everybody this Saturday in Abu Dhabi.
Great work, fellas. As you guys can see here, we're pretty excited about these 3 fights. Make sure you get these lines in before they move. And We're going to be live come Saturday. It's an early card. Set your timers accordingly. This thing pops off at 12 p.m. our time, Eastern time zone, that is. Of course, they're out there in the desert in Abu Dhabi. It's going to be a lot of fun. Whitaker, the reader, and I can't wait to watch this thing live with you guys, do that live betting that we do with these shows. But in the meantime, smash that thumbs up button if you like the video. Share your favorite play in the comments, and we'll be back again week after week with you guys here with First Strike, trying to go for a big winner this week. Good luck to everybody on their bets. On behalf of MMA Jeff, on behalf of Subhuman Gaucho, good luck with your MMA action, and thanks for supporting Sports Money. We'll see you guys soon.